Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marcia Gordon. I'm President and CEO of the Business Council of Westchester, and we are so pleased to welcome you today to the Tompkins Power Breakfast, talking about the changing consumer, today's spending habits, and what that means for business. That's pretty interesting thought when we all think about how we spend as consumers and what that means for all of us who are in businesses of great diversity and different lines of business, service businesses, retail businesses, manufacturing, healthcare, and more. And we have a great panel today, and we're eager to get started. And we're also eager to hear from our sponsor, Matthew Farrell, Vice President, Commercial Banking, Tompkins Community Bank. Matt?
Thank you, Marcia. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Power Breakfast. We're so pleased to be sponsoring the event this morning. And I really do think this topic is very timely. Whether you're a business owner, an employee, or even a consumer, you've undoubtedly experienced some change in purchasing habits based on the rising costs or the supply chain issues or anything else we've seen in our economy lately. And I know I'm looking forward to hearing what our panelists have to say on the issues of navigating through such a time. I'd also like to give special mention to our own Senior Vice President, John Kraus, who's on the panel today. So welcome, John. Thanks for helping out. Before I hand it back, I wanted to point out that Tompkins Mahopac Bank has officially changed its name to Tompkins Community Bank. You may notice our new logo and signage going forward, and we're all very excited about the consolidation of our 4 affiliates into one bank now. Our level of customer service is second to none, and we continue to find success helping our clients through these changing times. Please reach out to us with any questions you may have, and I encourage you to even speak with any of our current customers. I have no doubt you'll be impressed by what they say. And finally, I just wanted to give a quick thank you to Amanda and her team for a wonderful day of wellness that took place this past Monday. We had a great time, and I encourage you all to take part in it next year. It was really a fantastic event. So I won't delay things anymore. I'm excited to hear about the panel. So everyone have a great day. Thank you for joining us. And Marcia, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Matt. And I just want to say, especially during the pandemic, I think so many businesses learned how important it is to have a personal relationship, personal and professional relationship with your banker. And your community bank is so important. And Tompkins Community Bank, I have to learn to say that, has really been a partner to so many Business Council of Westchester members and a great contributor to our community. So thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So we all know, as I said before, that consumer beliefs and behaviors are changing fast. Service and product providers alike understand how shaping this evolving behavior is really the new normal. Today, from our panel, who I'm going to introduce in a minute, we will hear insights from them about a consumer shift back to basics, addressing customer loyalty and the increasing need for transparency and convenience. So please join me in welcoming, and if you'll just wave when I say your name, Bonnie Fogarty, the Executive Director of the YMCA of Central and Northern Westchester, Wiley Harrison, President, Business of Your Business, Robin Hellman, Co-founder, Go Love, New York, John Kraus, Senior Vice President, Program Administrator, Commercial Lender Development, Executive Director of Business Development Board. You have the longest title, John, and that reflects everything you do. Tompkins Community Bank. Leslie Lampert, proprietor, Ladle of Love, Bronxville, Love on the Run Catering, Market Love, and Ladle of Love at the Boys and Girls Club of Northern Westchester. I'm saying your name out, Viral Patel, Doctor, MD, CEO, and founder, Radish Health, and Laura Ray, I do it every time, Laura. Help me here. Iannarelli. I got it. President, the Ray Insurance Agency Incorporated. Welcome to our esteemed panel. So let me start with Bonnie. Camp is starting, right, Bonnie? Camp Combe. And the programs, services, and initiatives of the YMCA are so wide-ranging. Childcare is just one of the areas the Y touches on. Have you seen a shift in the focus of businesses toward the increased importance of childcare for their employees? And what does that mean for business?
Thank you, Marcia. That's a great question. We have seen a tremendous shift in businesses understanding that childcare is a business issue. It's not just a family issue now. And I think all of us can say that during the pandemic, that was a pretty big wide open for us. Studies show that there's 65% of families' work schedules are affected by childcare challenges. So we know here at the Y that childcare is important, and I think everybody else is realizing how really important that is. I think that businesses have seen that the childcare, in turn, if you are promoting childcare within your business, you can create a more positive work environment that they can attract and maintain more employees by offering either on-site childcare or childcare incentives, childcare tax credits. All of those things we're seeing a big shift in. We at the Y have seen a huge increase in businesses reaching out to us to see how they can better serve the needs of their families at their business. On-site childcare options, waitlist opportunities where they're guaranteed spots within our programming, as well as current conversations around what other businesses are doing. I know that the Business Council and the Child Care Council of Westchester recently had a big panel on the Westchester County funding for Westchester Works Child Care Scholarship, which is a huge incentive for businesses to share with their employees that there is funding available for childcare, because we all know that if families can't get to work, they can't do a good job. And childcare in turn also is making a better workforce. And I think businesses are really starting to understand what we do at the Y is kind of laying that foundation for the future.
It sounds to me when we talk about changing consumers and changing customers and spending habits and what that means for businesses, that at the Y, your customer, your actual customer in a way has changed from the parent or guardian of these children and the children themselves to the employer.
That is a big shift.
Yeah, it's a huge shift, because when we talk about the retention and attraction of talent, we know that for families, childcare, especially during the pandemic, when it became a real challenge, and onward when it still becomes a challenge, is even more important. So it's what I'm getting out of what you're saying. And I know at Camp Combe, you have 2,100 campers coming this summer. That's incredible. But it's really, really necessary for parents to have a safe, a fun, a learning experience for their children in order to go to work. And so it becomes something that employers need to know about, as well as consumer, as well as the actual consumer. That's a really interesting change. I don't think the Y a few years ago would have thought about employers as their customers. Thank you, Bonnie. We're going to come back to you, but let's go to Wiley Harrison at Business of Your Business. And Wiley, you service so many small businesses and not-for-profits and religious organizations and individuals. And again, having that partnership with your financial consultant, the one who's working with you to keep your books straight, has been so important for consumers. So all businesses we know have bookkeeping and accounting and payroll and tax. As BYB is an outsourced provider of these services, how have your clients' needs changed from pre-pandemic until now? Wiley, you're on mute.
Thank you, Marcia, and thank you guys for having me and including me in this conversation. At the BYB, which is also known for Business of Your Business, prior to the pandemic, we were primarily after the fact consultant. They had their transactions, we recorded them, we reported on them, and things like that. But since the pandemic has come, we've become even further in the background, planning for budgets, things like PPP applications for loans and PPP applications for loan forgivenesses, grant applications, loan applications. We've done quite a different business model in terms of really being a partner with these firms or with our clients and helping them kind of navigate. Me, with my exposure to other activities in the industry or in the economy, I've been able to advise them on what's available. Like, for example, Westchester County had a grant program a year ago. We navigated a few of our clients to be able to obtain those types of things. We also have changed because they stopped coming into the office, so we had to set up new technologies like document sharing and virtual meetings. Clients really appreciated that because it saved them from coming in and it allowed them to continue working. We were considered not essential workers when the pandemic started, so we've never really stopped. We just sort of can continue to navigate through the process and through the maze of the pandemic. So I hope that kind of addresses the question.
Absolutely. So I'm hearing new technologies, very, very important to work with your customers. And also it sounds like a lot more proactive in terms of finding opportunities for your customers. So you're not in the past, maybe, I want to say you're not just, I mean, you were always a great advisor, but in the past you were probably more doing the books and doing the accounting and everything. And it sounds like what you're doing is a lot more strategic in these changing times.
Yes.
Very, very, very interesting. Thank you, Wiley. Now, Robin Hellman started a tourism business, Go Love New York, at right before the pandemic, which is really interesting. And contrary to what you think, it's what you might think, it sounds like the timing was really ideal. So now we really have the return to tourism. So what are tourists visiting Westchester and beyond looking for now compared to when you first started Go Love NY, which had its start again in 2020?
Hi, and thank you for having me. When Go Love New York first started, our intention was to bring people from the city, teams of people, out to Westchester because there was so much to see and do, incorporating a little food, nature, and culture. And then as soon as the pandemic hit, it came to a screeching halt. We couldn't do any of that. And as things started to open, more and more people wanted to do get together with people outdoors, whether it was in a garden or seeing the grounds of a historic house. And so now when teams of people want to get together, they're still very interested in getting together because they haven't seen each other they're all working remote. So it's a good way to get people together where it's not just like a happy hour in a bar or a restaurant. People like going on a kayak to Bannerman Island, for instance, or a tour of a garden with a docent. And so that's really opened up things a lot for us.
So it sounds like, in a way, this was almost a kickstart to your business when you would think differently.
Because while the pandemic was going on, we hosted a lot of sign-up events where we would say, okay, July 2nd, we're going to Manitoga House, and we would get people to sign up for that. Or we're going on this date, we're going here, this date, going there. And that gave us the opportunity to meet all the different venues, different ways of doing things. And so while that wasn't our initial goal, now that we've met all these people and experienced different ways of doing things, we've come back to our original goal, which is getting teams, whether they're in Westchester already, whether they're in the city or as far away as like from all over the country, we get groups of people.
That's great. And certainly the outdoor part is really interesting. It makes complete sense, but it probably would have been different pre-pandemic in terms of how do you imagine that shift, since we're talking about the changing customer? Do you think your customer is different now than when
Absolutely. In the beginning, we had more people wanting a restaurant or inside of a museum or inside a historic house. And now it's like, we want to be outside as much as possible. So we try to gear as many of our groups, like the biggest part of it is outdoor. Even in the winter, we do things. We do history hikes. We do, we go to farms. We do a lot of things outside.
Wonderful. It's wonderful. And the Hudson Valley and Westchester is certainly so well suited for your business.
Yes.
That's fantastic. John Kraus, as a financial institution, community-based, Tompkins Community Bank provides innovative financial solutions for local families and businesses as they navigate their financial journeys. So how can changes in consumer sentiment and behavior affect strategic planning for businesses from a financial perspective?
Okay, well, thank you for having me on this panel, Marcia, and good morning, everybody. First of all, let's begin by looking where we've been and our current state. Businesses have gone from survival mode in 2020 to one of developing and adapting their business models and strategies in reaction to changing consumer spending habits that we've been experiencing these past 2 years. Businesses have benefited from very strong consumer spending these past 2 years. However, we may start seeing some shifts in this with the current headwinds that our economy is facing, particularly with inflation. We all know that consumer spending constitutes 2/3 of our economy, and we saw last quarter that our gross domestic product actually shrank by 1.5%. But that is not because of consumer spending. Consumer spending and business spending have still continued to be very robust. So there were other factors that brought down our economy. And for that reason is why economists feel that the economy is going to hold up while consumers continue to spend money. But consumers are going to spend money differently now, and their buying habits are going to shift. And businesses will have to plan for this. To give you an example, the major retailers like Walmart, Target, and so forth, they are now finding that they have excess inventory and merchandise on their shelves. And they now have to grapple with the shift and sudden change in consumer buying behavior. As consumers now shift away from spending less on durable goods and find ways to be able to afford the rising food prices, having to deal with energy costs and other necessities. So in the past, we've seen a lot of spending on patio furniture, indoor furniture, home improvement, and more specifically, the industries that have really benefited recently since they're coming out of the pandemic have been services such as travel, the resorts, or restaurants. The hotel industry, they were on the brink of death a couple of years ago, and now they are really looking very strong and solid, most of them, and including and especially the resorts. So what businesses now have to be faced with is how are the consumers going to adapt to the changing environments that we are facing with. And so these big box retailers, for example, I just mentioned, are going to need to adjust their strategies as to what goods they're going to store on their shelves, and also their pricing strategies. Demand for and preferences for big ticket items and luxury items are likely to decrease, especially as inflation now eats away at our budget and our pocketbooks.
And John, I'm sure, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. The good news is unemployment is at historical lows and wages are increasing. So that is being a nice counterbalance here. So businesses will invariably have to drive their business investment and spending strategies on inventory and merchandise. Some of the things that our customers are telling us, our business customers are telling us, are supply chain disruptions, material and inventory costs, and labor shortages. These are now the key items that they're grappling with today, as opposed to 2 years ago, where again it was also survival mode. So, in essence, businesses are going to need to reflect their business models and their strategies to deal with pricing, marketing, capital investment, and merchandising strategies. In short.
And so, John, thank you for giving a really good perspective, and from the business's point of view and what's happening. You spoke as an economist, and that's really, really interesting and strategic. But it also probably influences decisions you make as a banker in terms of loans, in terms of wealth advising, in terms of the retail banking. In terms of interest rates and all of that. So that'll be something interesting possibly to come back to.
Oh, absolutely. Credit demand and loan demand and how we structure loans for our customers. This is all going to come into play. And also credit underwriting, as certain industries are going to be more impacted by these changes in consumer spending habits than others.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you so much, John. Leslie, as the first consciously sourced takeout food shop in Westchester, specializing in small batch production, Ladle of Love, I love the name. I love the name of your company, has been evolving since the shop opened in 2003. So how, in your case, have the needs of the customer changed over the years, and how has Ladle of Love transformed to meet those needs?
Thank you, Marcia, and thank you everybody for participating. I think collectively we have a lot of information to share. I want to start by saying that in the last 18 years, the trends of how we eat have definitely ricocheted all over the place. And certainly in the last 2 years, how people have their food delivered to them has changed radically. And to that point, in 2018, when I closed my Cafe of Love, the restaurant that I had for 11 years, little did I know that that was a smart decision. Sometimes our smartest decisions are retrospective. So transformed the business between 2018 and 2020 into healthful food delivery, distribution, and takeout. And minimized and closing the restaurant was actually a very good prescient thing. So we do a big business with places like Fresh Direct, where you can get our food from other distributors, and that catapulted the business during COVID years. I want to say also that and our takeout shops, and we did COVID catering. We do make all the food at the Boys and Girls Club for the boys and girls at in Mount Kisco. That's from here. But I want to say a few things, if possible. I think that in order to do things differently, we have to think differently. In the conversation, of course, we know about price increases and gas and labor issues. But I think that if the word for 2020 was pivot, the word for 2022 is collaboration. And I don't mean just business to business. I mean between our customers and our clients and our consumers. And I think we're not used to engaging in the ways that we used to engage in prior to COVID. And mental health issues are very prevalent now. And I think that we all have to adjust to speaking to each other again, listening again, and understanding that, especially in my business, in the food industry, where the profit margins are this big, and that we're not in it to get very rich, we're in it because we want to take care of everybody. And to that point, we made thousands of meals for frontliners all through COVID. But I think that we have to learn gratitude and respect at the very beginning of all of our relationships. And I think we have to make sure that we're communicating in ways that we are listening to each other, that we are caring about each other. That goes to the conversations that some of you've already spoken about in how we take care of our customers, but also expecting our customers to understand some of the things. I mean, bread costs money. So when you have to pay $1 extra for bread, you have been paying for that in a blended margin on the menu all the time. But in an effort to let people who don't want bread to not have to pay for it, we have to understand and educate the consumer that everything does cost money, and it's a new way of looking at how we do business.
No, it's so important what you're saying, in terms of collaboration and gratitude and patience. I was talking to some people and they were talking about the terrible service they received someplace, and I was like, please stop it. There is a labor shortage. We all need to, when we go to service businesses, whether they be in food or other areas, we need to be patient, and we need to be understanding, and that the person behind that counter is also dealing with issues. Maybe a child that they just got called, come, you have to pick up your child because there's a fever, and and the person is thinking, oh my God, what if I have to keep that child home for 10 days? So that gratitude and collaboration, respect for each other, and working together is so important. especially in a business like yours, Leslie, and others, where you're really serving people on a very, very basic and most delicious way. So thank you so much.
Can I
Thank
just
you.
say one more thing?
Yes,
So the
please.
middle of the story, but also taking care of my, to your point, my employees and understanding the mental health issues and the obviously medical issues is a very big part of making sure that the business stays relevant and strong. So that's, I know I'm
Well,
done.
this is a perfect segue to Dr. Viral Patel with Radish Health. And by the way, the Business Council of Westchester has just partnered with Radish Health through the Westchester Innovation Network, WIN. So we are your match, and we're very, very excited because one of the things that you do provide is our mental health services and others. And so Dr. Patel, Radish Health is a platform that keeps organizations healthy, happy, and productive by providing accessible primary care and mental health services. It is a B2B company. How would you detail working with the needs of individual businesses as the primary client?
Thank you again for having us. And Leslie, thank you for the segue. That was perfect.
That's perfect. Thank you, Leslie.
Yeah, I believe that we also have dietitians on our platform too. So Leslie, we should talk because we do prescribe certain types of food for people.
Oh, that's great.
It's changed a lot. I think, as you mentioned earlier, there is a bit of a labor shortage, so people are vying for talent and trying to attract talent. And that's across all levels. Historically, it's been really the higher end white collar jobs where they have to provide crazy benefits to attract people. And now we're seeing, even in the hospitality industry, people earning far more than they were before as hourly wage workers. And the best way for employers to attract talent and retain talent is to provide some additional benefits that keeps them around, keeps it sticky. And that's where we've really fit in. Health insurance alone hasn't been sufficient for a lot of employers. People are still having a hard time finding a therapist, hard time finding a doctor they can actually see in a timely fashion, which is why there's plenty of urgent cares around, which are a little bit expensive. So where we fit in is we help employers make their current employees happy. And as they're trying to bring in new employees, let them know that, hey, we're not just a place where you come to work and you clock in, you clock out, but we take care of your healthcare needs. That keeps the employees around. And then two, when they get sick, they're not taking a half day to go figure out what to do with their illness. We help them do that in a timely fashion on their own time.
Well, it's very important. And we are looking at attracting and retaining employees as the biggest challenge that employers have now. Yeah. Finding them and keeping them, because the next employer is coming along and offering $5 or $10 or $15 or $20,000 more, and people do leave. And so you have to make your workplace really, really attractive. And I could tell you that Radish Health is a very, very innovative company. And they others have recognized it. They've attracted great investment, and we're really, really happy to be talking about your really interesting service in Westchester County. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Laura, in the insurance business, your company has been in business for 40 plus years, and your mission at Reinsurance has been to give your customers peace of mind and financial security. So have you seen a shift in the last 2 years with increasing customers, and they're looking to do business virtually versus in person? How, as a service provider, have you responded to that shift?
Well, thank you for having me on this panel, Marcia. I very much appreciate it. I also want to thank Tompkins Community Bank for being my banker for 44 years. And during the pandemic, Maria Lopez really helped me with my PPP loan, because I was nervous when the governor deferred insurance payments that maybe, I wasn't gonna have my clients pay their bills on time, and that's would affect me. But each topic and each question that every panelist has had here has touched in my business as far as technology, and then listening to clients and having relationships. I haven't seen, interestingly, I'm an independent agent, so my clients do understand that relationships are important, and I like to have my relationships with each of my clients. So whether it's on the phone or Zoom, or I know we couldn't have them come in, but I made sure that I could in some way, if I had to go see them in a 6 feet, way, I would be there for them. And I want to touch the one thing I want to touch on is, in this economy right now, yes, with trying to save money, insurance is definitely a portion of where you can look to save money. But more importantly, is the coverage that you have. You want to save money, but you want to make sure you're protected. And even if you do some shifts in the coverage, it's important that you don't take away to save money, that maybe you change different parts of your coverage that you may not, necessarily need, or you can increase deductibles, anything to reduce the premium, but not the coverage. And that's the one thing that I wanted to point out. But yes, everything, I did notice, as Leslie said, with bread, ironically, my husband went shopping at Wegmans, which is our favorite place, and we used to pay for our sourdough, it was $5, and now it's up to $6.50. So, but you know what? We understand, we know things are tight right now, and we want to still be supportive. So
Absolutely. And
Thank you.
I think, Laura, a lot of service businesses, and especially financial businesses, probably found that during the pandemic, people had some time to look at some of the things, I know I did, during the pandemic, that they might not have looked at before, like insurance coverage. And so it probably opened up some opportunities for you as well. So, how do, and this question, and Adam Handler asked this question also. How do you work with customers now that when you might not know each other? How do you develop those delicate matters up front when relationships aren't fully developed? So Leslie, perhaps you want to start with that, and then if anyone else wants to chime in. So Leslie, you mentioned gratitude and collaboration and listening, education, companies important up front. How do you best tackle these delicate matters when relationships aren't fully developed the way they might have been pre-pandemic?
Thank you so much for sending this question to me. First, I'd like to say that I have been talking with legislators in Albany through, on multiple WebExes just about this conversation of how to make sure that, or not make sure, but how to start an initiative or a program that educates consumers at large on a whole variety of what I call backstory and the beginning of how we do better in business post-COVID, hopefully post-COVID, right, doctor? But at any rate, I think that what we're talking about is conversation. What we're talking about is education. What we're talking about is understanding that we need to focus. And I think in this era of social media and Instagram, where we are, snippets, we need to get back to understanding, to have conversations and to interact and exchange ideas, and to understand that these are, it's not that it's difficult, it's new thinking. So we have to train people to think differently. And in that vein, interacting with each customer, understanding not to rush. And I think we're all in such a rush to get our customer and to do better. And we've had a dearth of business for many of us for so long that I think we're in a rush. And I think we have to slow down. I have a saying at work, slow down to speed up. And I think that means to pay attention to what the conversation is, what customers knowledge bases, and to not get aggravated when they don't know what we want them to know, but to teach them. And once that information gets parlayed, I think, and again, it's one customer at a time, and then we can also do larger initiatives, perhaps county-wise, and get back to learning how to engage with one another so that we are listening to each other.
Very, very, very important. And I think, Leslie, you also mentioned collaboration, collaboration, communication. And Robin, I know that at your business, you've been working and partnering with other Westchester businesses that are not specifically related to tourism, but contribute to the industry. So those strategic partnerships seem to be very, very important in terms of addressing those changing consumer spending habits. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. We, because we do so many things, like I've said, outside, we partner with local historians to take us on a history walk or hike, and they tell us the history of Irvington or the history of the town, things that you might not know already. A very popular one we do is we partner with a local photographer, and he takes us on a walk and shoot type of tour. And that's where most people have an iPhone or something similar who don't know how to use their iPhone. So we go on a hike or a walk, and it could be at Rockwood Hall, T-Town, the Irvington Woods. And this photographer teaches everybody how to use their iPhone. So we partner with him quite often. And he's not in the tourism business at all. So we do that with him. We do a similar thing with studio artists where we're painting. So we try to bring in people that are not necessarily like in the tourism business to work with us, learning about the history and tourism in the area.
So do you think that at this point, those partnerships and those collaborations are even more important in terms of addressing the changing consumer and what the consumer is looking for?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because people they want an experience more than just go to an event. They want the package of being outdoors, learning something, doing something, engaging with, if it's a team, their coworkers, or if it's a family. We often get groups of families who have coming from all over the place and are doing not quite a team bonding, but like a reunion of sorts to get together. So this just gives another way of spending time with each other and getting to know each other that works for families, it works for teams, it works for small groups of people.
Very interesting. And Dr. Patel at Radish, you're also dealing with changing consumer behavior and collaborations and communication and gratitude and respect. And so what do people value most in medical care, relationships or convenience? And what does that mean for you as the service provider? And honestly, as kind of the new idea, I don't want to say the new kid on the block, but the new idea, the new concept on the block. You're on mute.
I think it's interesting if you ask people what they value about their providers, they'll say relationships. They want to know their doctor. They want to, and the same thing that goes with banking. They want to know their banker. They want to know a lot of people. But in the end, if you look at consumer behavior, they tend to go to the most convenient thing. There's a reason why urgent cares pop up all over the place and people go to the next doctor available. So either we can bang our head against the wall and hope for the best and get people to behave in the way we want them to, where they actually maintain a good relationship with their doctor to remain healthy, or we make it easier for people to have a great relationship. And that's really our founding principle as a practice, is how do we make seeing your doctor and building a relationship with a doctor that becomes your doctor and a therapist, that can we make that really easy where people don't have to choose between what's important, a relationship or convenience? It should be both. And so that's where we've really focused. And I think it's important that you don't have to give up one to get the other. You can get both if done correctly.
Yeah, and we're, at the Business Council of Westchester, we're just getting started with Radish. But I will tell you that one of our team members did have a question about COVID from one of her family members, and so she immediately went on and immediately got an answer, and in a very timely way, in a very compassionate way. There was a follow-up there. And so we're learning from you. You're a great example of where that convenient and most intimate relationship, right? With the doctor, with the therapist, with the nutritionist can actually work together. It's really, really a great concept. Really, really terrific. And Wiley, you've always been about relationships, and you've always been about collaboration. So what would you say has been the biggest change during this time of post-pandemic, we'll say, let's get to post-pandemic, in terms of doing business and working with your customers? You're on mute, Wiley.
Great question, Marsha, and thanks for asking. I think our clients' biggest challenges can be changed into their biggest fears. And one of those fears is the uncertainty of the economy. My clients rely on philanthropy and grants and things like that, and they fear that the economy is not going the right way, and that's going to affect their bottom line. Another challenge or fear that they have is cybersecurity, especially with the employees working remotely now from unsecured locations. They fear that's one of their biggest fears, and they're trying to wrestle with that and how to best challenge that with, at the least cost. Things like politics and the pandemic re-emerging is also a challenge or a fear for them, and they're trying to adjust and smart for that. And lastly, they worry about the tax law changes. Back in 2018, Trump changed the tax law to make it more favorable for a group of people, but they fear that that's coming back and going to change their tax obligations. Audits are up right now from the IRS in the state of New York. So those are some of the challenges and fears that these guys are having in terms of how they feel that it might affect their businesses and their not-for-profits and religious organizations.
So how do you, as their financial services provider, help them address that? None of us have all of the answers, right?
Yeah, I try to show them that that some things that can be looked at as a negative can be a positive, and and to try to plan for it by budgeting and doing what if scenarios, and then preparing for that. For example, it's nice to be able to give a raise to somebody that might be leaving or might have a offer somewhere else. But it's another thing to be able to sustain that wage going forward year after year after year. They need to be able to consider that and plan for that. And maybe it is time to let that person go. It may not be, but at least that mathematical equation gives them a little bit more ammunition in their decision making.
I really appreciate that. By the way, of course, as it would be, as I'm facilitating this panel, our wonderful garbage people are outside picking up our recycles, so excuse the noise. But I really appreciate that everybody is addressing the realities of situations. We want to be have gratitude, we want to be compassionate, we want to be kind to our employees and our customers and considerate. But the truth of the matter is bread prices are going up. And
Can I ask a question, Marsha?
Yes,
To
please
Wiley?
do.
Wiley, Wiley, with the businesses that you're working with as well, do you find, as far as employers' liability, the EPLI, do they talk about, maybe getting those with cyber as well, but getting those additional coverages? Because I'm finding for my restaurants, especially, that I need to put that coverage on. It's just protection for the employer. So do they talk about worrying about their employees?
And Laura, what is EPLI?
It's employer's liability. It's to protect the employer if they do something wrong with their employee, that they come back to them, if they wrongfully terminate or they don't pay them the right amount, employees, maybe sexual harassment is definitely, since it's a required training program, they're coming back. And I'm just curious if you see anything, because I am adding that coverage on where
I have definitely seen it. As a matter of fact, a lot of my clients I've taught are pointed toward the Workforce Development Board, and now the Workforce Development Board, in order to give some of those incentives and those on-the-job training contracts, are requiring that specific type of insurance. So they are changing, and they are coming to you for just that reason. Yes, I have seen that, a lot of that.
Yes, thank you.
Very
And-
interesting. Yes, go ahead, Leslie.
Oh, sorry, I didn't. I also just wanted to say that one of the things is informational sources. So for instance, I'm on the board of directors of the United Way, and there's an unbelievable program called 211 that is great for the consumer population and our employees that is for critical care, whether it be medical or homelessness or any other variety of urgent situations where they connect you to the proper places. And so I'm having these kinds of this information to be able to give to our employees and further is essential. And I think, we're working now on even putting together a list that we're going to post in the back office for employees to understand how to access whether it's healthcare or mental health care or financial healthcare, Wiley. Because I think at Wiley's point, fear is the biggest motivator right now, and fear creates hostility and anxiety. So I just want to say that.
Very, very important. And John Kraus, we know also that the Federal Reserve is currently operating with policy that's raising interest rates. So that also has a huge impact on business operations and changing consumer habits, spending habits. So what impact do you believe that policy will have on consumer spending habits?
Well, thank you for pointing out the Federal Reserve does raise interest rates, so you don't blame Tompkins and the rest of the
Yeah,
banking
it's not the bank,
communities.
right?
But well, right now, the impact of rising rates has had a negligible impact on consumer spending and the economy. But that's not going to be the case over the longer term. And I think everybody understands what the Fed is trying to do is they're taking out the old Paul Volcker playbook in combating inflation through higher interest rates, basically to cool demand down, slow down the economy, and through slowing down the rate of price increases. But what that's going to do for us as consumers and also for businesses, well, first of all, let's look at the housing market. That's going to have the most immediate impact here. And we've all experienced here in the Hudson Valley and in Westchester the premium home prices that we've experienced in this past few years. And while that has been largely because of a short supply, that's also been fueled by very low interest rates. But the mortgage market rates have increased by over 2 percentage points now in the last few months. And for the average home in Westchester and for the average mortgage, that's going to mean $300 to $500 more increase in your mortgage payments. And that's serious money there. That's to take into consideration. So that certainly is going to it's going to slow down. It's going to slow down, mortgage financing or mortgage refinancing. It's going to slow down home equity, lines of credit, and consumers have relied on the equity in their homes to reliquify themselves and provide some more spending money. But that's going to cut into our pocketbooks here. This is also going to affect higher ticket items like automobiles and so forth. But the good news is right now we have not seen a slowdown in the housing market or automobile sales. In fact, the consumer credit has actually increased in the month of April, and it's going to be interesting to see if consumers are going to continue to borrow, if they're actually going to slow down their borrowing as well too. So
Very interesting.
again, it's the cost of debt is going to be up, and it's also going to impact businesses because the cost of capital is going to increase, and that's going to affect their ability to finance inventory purchases, plant and equipment and machinery, and also the cost of capital. In other words, in raising private equity funds to grow their businesses. So interest rates are going to have a real profound impact over the longer run, and we're going to start seeing some of that impact in the months ahead.
Thank you so much. And Bonnie at the Y, by the way, I do want to remind everybody that on June 21st at 9 a.m., we will have a virtual meeting to educate our members on the new Westchester Works Child Care Scholarship Program. So please attend that. It's not only for the people who have children going to childcare. You please attend that as employers, as you help your employees navigate the very costly childcare system, no matter where you are. And fortunately in Westchester, we have an excellent childcare system, and the YMCA does a great job. But how is the shift that you've seen at the Y, how has that affected their, the decisions that parents make for their children?
Thank you, Marsha. And I think that can kind of speak to a little bit about what everybody was saying, the collaboration, the partnership, interest rates going up, businesses being worried about spending and how they're going to spend. And all that feeds back into, childcare as a need and families as a need. I think one of the big things that, Leslie said, collaborations, we talked about relationships and the pivoting, right? That big pivot that we all had to do. At the Y, we've always specialized in high quality childcare programs and high quality summer camps, because we know that kids need a great place to learn and grow, right? Getting that message out and collaborating and working with other people is what we're doing now. So we not only provide childcare in our facilities, but we have met the needs of childcare in other places. So we partner with 7 school districts in Westchester and Putnam County. We provide care on site. In one of our new relationships, we have 250 kids before and after school. That's 250 families that are able to stay at work. We have new partnerships with local organizations. In White Plains, we were able to change our business model and make a collaboration with a local nonprofit religious organization and renovate their building to give new life into it. We're in the process of working with other businesses to do the same thing. Also, going into businesses, so organizations that have now, because they do have remote workers, they have a limited workforce, they now have spaces within their building, but still want to be able to meet the needs, and understanding that childcare is essential by saying, hey, we have this open space. Can you provide childcare on site for our employees? And I think that shift, that collaboration, I know we mentioned transparency. That's a big thing for parents, is making sure that we at the Y and all businesses are telling people ahead of time what we're going to get and what they're anticipating. But I think, touching on all of that, does shift back to, how can we make everybody better after this, right? So we've all spoken about the pandemic and how that is. And one of the things that we're seeing is we shifted our curriculum in our programs, obviously building those foundations for kids. Parents are sending their children because they want to have a positive experience. And we've seen a shift in making sure that our programs are talking to that social emotional aspect of children. So we're calling that mental health, right? We all have mentioned that, it's been a piece of it, but that social emotional is huge in our childcare programs right now. And I think that is a big shift for parents that has never been before. We changed a little bit of our programming to make sure that we kind of rebranded our programs as Operation Rebound, getting them back in,
Right.
learning to be kids again, learning to grow. So that's definitely a shift we've seen. And as Leslie mentioned, that collaboration is huge. And I think that everybody here gets that.
So you've all talked about relationships and communication, and this question kind of ties in. So Anthony Farcetta asks, do you see an increase in face-to-face meetings, or do you believe we will be meeting remotely moving forward? And since that personal touch and communication is so important, how are we handling this moving forward? And maybe we could just kind of start with Laura and, ask anyone to just chime in here.
Yes, I think that meeting personally is always the best option. There's something doing the last 2 years on Zoom or virtual networking or any other meeting, there's nothing like being in person. And the circles of influence, Marcia, that I had went to was so incredible, because you just felt the energy in the room. And the most important learning tip that I received from that meeting was creating relationships. It is all about relationships, with your insurance agent, with, your banker, with even Leslie with at Ladle of Love. I mean, you and Robin, you're traveling. How incredible to be together, and not only being outside, but learning something. Everything is about relationships and communication. So that's really the focus. And I try to encourage everyone, if you can, as long as you feel comfortable, but meet in person, try to meet in person.
And especially at this time when, as you've pointed out, customers often do reassess expenses. That you want that personal touch is even more important, so that customers can understand the consequences or lack thereof of those expenses that they reassess.
I do think also it does tie into all the mental health. I mean, having socialization, having, being able to talk to someone, the kids too. I see the kids at the school, and it's just nice to have everyone together and have that, socialization. It's important to
But I
have.
do think, if I can speak, I think we have to be mindful that a hybrid is probably what the future is going to look like.
Yeah.
And I think the reasons for that are, while in person is fantastic for all the reasons you said, Laura, people are still skittish about being among each other. And I think the hybrid of having access, and the key word is access, to people, it's easy to jump on a FaceTime or a Zoom or something like that. And remember about gas prices too. So we have to be
That's right.
mindful, if we're going to be going an hour away to go to an event, gas prices, are part of that equation. But I think a hybrid is what we should be looking at. And access is everything.
Yes, and I do agree, absolutely. And what's interesting with one of my insurance carriers that have their annual meeting, usually we have to go up to that place. The place they usually have is 3.5 hours away, but they knew to give in-person and virtual, so that they gave the both options. And technology is so important. And that's another thing that I do work with the Big I, and I work in stressing to legislators that technology is so important for our small businesses to survive. So that's like the main.
Great.
So important.
Thank you so much. Anyone have anything really quick to add before we close this out? You've all been so amazing. And I'm looking at all of you who can help each other and help the business community and our members navigate through this still really evolving time of the changing consumer, how people spend money, what that means for business, what changes you have to make, what new relationships you have, what new services you have to offer. We're excited to share our experiences with Radish Health and others, what organizations you need to be a part of. It's all very, very exciting. And I think we've started a conversation. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Laura Powers, for saying it was informative and thought-provoking, because I couldn't say it better myself. So we want to thank Bonnie Fogarty, the YMCA of Central and Northern Westchester, Wiley Harrison, Business of Your Business, Robin Hellman, Go Love New York, John Kraus, Tompkins Community Bank, Leslie Lambert, Ladle of Love, Dr. Patel, Radish Health, Laura Ray Iannarelli, the Ray Insurance Agency. And we want to thank you all for sharing your wisdom and your experience, and especially want to thank our friends at Tompkins Community Bank for your sponsorship of these Power Breakfasts, that your commitment to business, and especially small business, is really makes Westchester County and the Hudson Valley grow. So we appreciate that, and we thank you all for your time this morning, and we wish you a really great day ahead. Thank you.
If I could speak for the panel, we want to say thank you to you as well. You did an excellent job as moderator, and
Thank you.
it was thought-provoking, and we appreciate your leadership.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that,
For a
Wiley.
living, Marcia, good job.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Take
Bye-bye,
care.
guys. Have a nice
Have a
day,
great
everybody.
day,
Bye.
everybody. If you're hungry,